I had been estranged from my family for 6 long years after a series of painful events that pushed me to the brink. My mother passed away when I was 14, and the tension started building when my father remarried shortly after. Jenny, my stepmother, came into our lives and quickly made it clear she wanted no reminders of my late mother. My dad, eager to move on, let her erase my mother's memory from our lives, which led to a rift between my father and me. I was still a teenager, trying to process the loss of my mother, while my dad was building a life with someone else. The real fracture happened when I was in college. Despite juggling multiple part-time jobs to pay for school, my father refused to offer any financial help, saying I needed to learn responsibility. Meanwhile, he was fully funding Mark's education at an expensive private school. The discrepancy in how we were treated felt like a slap in the face, and it made it impossible for me to maintain any semblance of a relationship with my father. Jenny, always with her condescending attitude, belittled the effort I put into building my catering business, dismissing it as a food truck. She constantly praised Mark for his real career in finance. It was a constant reminder that no matter how hard I worked, I would always be looked down upon in their eyes. After college, I tried to make peace with the situation, but the distance only grew. I showed up for holidays, but it was just out of obligation. It was clear that no matter what I did, the family dynamic had changed permanently. The final blow came 6 years ago when I discovered that my father and Jenny had sold the childhood home without informing me. I was blindsided, and when I confronted my father, he dismissed my feelings, telling me I was being overly emotional and that I needed to move on. That was the moment I cut them out of my life completely. I couldn't continue pretending that everything was fine when they had disrespected me so thoroughly. So, when I received the wedding invitation from my younger brother Mark, I was surprised. After 6 years of silence, Mark had reached out, asking me to come to his wedding and offering a chance for reconciliation. I was hesitant but also curious, hoping that this could be the bridge that mended the rift in our family. Despite everything, I decided to go. I also offered to provide the catering for the wedding, even though I knew my services were being declined by Jenny and my father. I thought it would be a nice gesture to extend an olive branch and contribute to his big day. After all, I had built a successful catering business over the years, a business I was proud of. It started as a humble food truck back when I was in college and eventually grew into a full-service catering company. I had built this business from the ground up with sleepless nights, sacrifice, and unwavering determination. It was my life's work, and I was proud of it. However, when I arrived at the wedding, I was immediately met with hostility. My father and stepmother treated me as if I didn't belong, like an outsider. The worst part came when, just before the wedding photo was taken, Jenny told me to step aside and take the picture for the family. She didn't even ask if I wanted to be in the picture. It was a clear, unspoken exclusion. At first, I tried to brush it off, telling myself it was just a photo, but the behavior only continued. Jenny started making sarcastic remarks about my business, and my father acted as though I didn't even exist. I had tried to help, to be a part of the family, but instead, I was being treated like I was invisible. I couldn't take it anymore. After enduring their cruelty, I decided to leave, but not without making my point clear. I had paid for the catering at the wedding, and I knew they had taken it for granted. I stood up and let them know that since they had been so dismissive of my efforts, they were now left with no food at their wedding. I had warned them to do their due diligence in choosing a caterer, but now, their poor judgment had left 300 guests without a meal. It was a moment of justice for me, though it was bittersweet. In the end, it wasn't about the food or the catering. It was about the disrespect I had endured for years. I had done everything I could to be part of their lives, but they had refused to acknowledge me. Instead of appreciating my gesture of goodwill, they treated me like a nuisance. I had tried to rebuild, but their behavior made it clear that some things can never go back to the way they were. That wedding, which was supposed to be a celebration, turned into a painful reminder of everything I had lost and everything I had been willing to give. Last month, I received a formal invitation to Mark's wedding, completely unexpected. Tucked inside was a handwritten note from him saying he missed me and wanted to repair our relationship. I spent several days thinking it over before deciding to give it a shot. Despite everything that had happened in the past, I figured it was worth showing up if Mark was sincere. As a gesture of goodwill, I even offered to cater the wedding at a significant discount through my company. Mark politely declined, explaining that they'd already booked another vendor. I won't lie, it stung a little, but I didn't let it bother me. The wedding was held at a beautiful venue in Lake Forest. I arrived with cautious optimism. Mark seemed genuinely happy to see me, which gave me a flicker of hope. But the moment Jenny saw me, she wasted no time in firing off passive-aggressive comments about my appearance and mocking my catering business. I let it slide and tried to enjoy the ceremony, which, to be fair, was stunning. But the seating arrangement said everything. I was placed far from close family, stuck at a table with distant relatives I barely recognized. It felt like a deliberate reminder that I didn't truly belong. Things got worse during the reception. My father, already clearly drunk, walked over to my table and launched into a loud tirade. He accused me of crashing the wedding, even though I had the invitation in my pocket, and said I was humiliating the family just by being there. Before I could respond, Jenny chimed in with a fake sweet tone, asking how my little restaurant hobby was going and making digs about the suit I was wearing, implying I couldn't afford it. It was humiliating. I didn't react. I stood up and quietly walked out. There was no point in giving them more ammunition. But as I passed the catering area, something stopped me cold. I recognized several of the staff members. They worked for me. That's when it all clicked. The catering company Mark had hired had recently been acquired by my company. I hadn't been involved in the planning, and the previous owner still managed the bookings, but on paper I owned that event. I reached out to my operations manager to confirm what I already suspected. Sure enough, it was our event. My father's cruel words, calling me an embarrassment and saying I was ruining the wedding just by showing up, echoed in my head. That was the moment I made my decision. If my presence was such a problem, then they clearly didn't deserve the service my company was providing. I immediately told my team to wrap everything up and leave. Within 15 minutes, all 25 of my staff had packed the food, equipment, and supplies into our trucks and were gone. Chaos broke out almost instantly. With no main course or dessert, the 300 guests began to notice something was wrong. My father tried to stop the unraveling, but it was too late. The contract he signed allowed for termination in the event of hostile or discriminatory behavior, and what he did met every condition. I left my business card with the venue manager and told her to direct my father to my lawyer if he had anything to dispute. The backlash came fast. By the next morning, my phone was flooded with angry messages from family, calling me selfish and petty. Mark sent a long message blaming me for ruining his wedding, claiming I had proved Jenny right all along. My father, of course, threatened to sue. I passed everything to my lawyer and blocked them. But then came an unexpected wave of support. A number of wedding guests reached out, saying they were shocked by how my father and Jenny treated me and that they understood why I did what I did. One of Mark's friends even apologized and praised how professionally my team had handled everything. As the days went on, word of what happened spread. Among Mark's friends and colleagues, the story of the wedding fallout made the rounds, and Jenny's perfect image began to unravel. She tried to spin it, blaming me entirely, but no one believed her. The truth was out and the damage was done. After reflecting on everything that transpired, I truly don't feel any guilt. I didn't make a scene at the wedding, nor did I crash it. I was invited and, in return, treated with disrespect. They chose to humiliate me, so I exercised my legal right to terminate the service. It wasn't personal, it was just business. They didn't want me there, so they didn't get my service. It was as simple as that. However, despite my firm stance, I can't seem to shake the feeling that I've somehow been dragged back into a family drama I had hoped to leave behind. Now, I'm wondering if I handled it the right way. Did I go too far, or did they truly deserve the outcome for treating me as they did? The situation has been weighing heavily on me, so I'm reaching out for some perspective from Reddit. Am I the asshole here, or was I justified in my actions? The amount of support I've received since sharing my story has been overwhelming, and I want to thank everyone who's weighed in. Honestly, I didn't expect this to gain so much attention, but I'm grateful for the kind words and thoughtful responses. It's been a bit overwhelming to keep up with the comments and messages, but I've tried to respond to as many as I can. I truly appreciate everyone's feedback, as many of your perspectives have given me new angles to consider. As for the legal side of things, yes, my father and Jenny have threatened to sue me, just as I suspected. Here's what has happened since I posted. After the wedding fiasco, I reached out to my lawyer to stay ahead of any potential legal trouble. We reviewed the contract between my catering company and the previous owner of the wedding, which was signed by either Mark or his wedding planner. The good news is that the contract is rock solid. It has a clause that allows us to terminate services if there's any hostile or discriminatory behavior directed at our staff or ownership. This clause was specifically added for situations like the one I found myself in. To ensure everything was lined up, I also contacted the venue manager. They confirmed that their security cameras had captured the entire altercation. The footage clearly shows my father approaching me, and although the audio wasn't perfect, it was enough to confirm he was berating me. Jenny's snide remarks were also caught on camera, which clearly depicted that their behavior was hostile enough to justify the decision to stop providing services at the event. With this evidence, I feel confident that my legal standing is solid. As the situation continues to unfold, I'm reassured by the fact that I've taken the proper steps to protect myself legally. But emotionally, it's been a complicated and draining process. A few days after the wedding, my attorney sent a detailed letter to my father's legal representative, outlining exactly what had happened. We explained that our contract explicitly allowed termination in the event of hostile or discriminatory behavior, and we referenced the video footage we had as proof. We made it clear that we were more than prepared to provide the evidence in court if necessary. I assumed that would settle things, but I had clearly underestimated Jenny's pettiness and determination to stir up more chaos. Just yesterday, we received a response from my father's lawyer. They were now demanding a full refund for the catering services and threatening to sue for damages, claiming that the abrupt cancellation had ruined the wedding and caused emotional distress. Their letter wasn't just about getting their money back. They were seeking compensation for the entire disruption of the event. Naturally, I wasn't going to entertain that kind of extortion. I wasn't responsible for the drama. They were. After reviewing everything with my legal team, we sent back a counteroffer. We agreed to refund half of the original deposit, but only if they agreed to two conditions. First, they must sign a non-disclosure agreement, which would bar them from discussing the incident publicly or leaving negative reviews. Second, they'd have to sign a release of claims, which would prevent them from taking any legal action against me or my company in the future. We sent the proposal and are now waiting to hear back. In the meantime, Jenny's antics haven't stopped. The venue manager gave me a heads up that she'd been trying to post false and defamatory reviews about my catering company online, saying we intentionally sabotaged the wedding and created unnecessary drama. Luckily, the venue stepped in and removed the posts, but it was another headache I didn't need. My legal team is monitoring everything she does now, and if she crosses the line again, we'll file a formal defamation claim. Ironically, all this chaos has actually turned into unexpected publicity for my business. A few of the wedding guests contacted me after the event to say how impressed they were by how professionally my team handled the situation. Some of them even asked about booking us for their own events. It's strange how something that felt like a nightmare in the moment has led to new opportunities, but I'll take the win where I can. Regarding my brother Mark, he still hasn't reached out to me directly, but he did send a message through one of our mutual cousins. In it, he admitted feeling guilty for not standing up for me at the wedding. He said he didn't want to rock the boat with our father and Jenny, which is why he chose to stay quiet when things went sideways. He apologized and asked if we could meet to talk things through. I'm torn. A part of me wants to give him the benefit of the doubt and hear him out, but another part wonders if it's too little, too late. For now, I'm holding off on any kind of meeting until the legal dust has settled. On a personal note, I've done a lot of soul-searching in the wake of all this. In some ways, I do feel validated for finally standing up for myself and drawing a clear line with my family after years of feeling like an outsider. Professionally and legally, I know I made the right moves, but emotionally, it's been a draining, exhausting ordeal. Mark's wedding was meant to be a celebration, not a catalyst for a legal battle and full-blown family drama. Now that it's all said and done, I can't help but feel a lingering sense of loss. I wonder what the fallout will be long-term. Will there ever be a way to rebuild any kind of relationship with Mark? Or is the rift too wide now? I don't have the answers, and maybe I won't for a long time. Right now, all I can do is focus on what's directly in front of me. We've extended an offer to my father and Jenny that includes an NDA and a mutual release of claims. If they accept, maybe we can finally put this behind us. If not, and they want to pursue legal action, I'm ready to defend both myself and my business to the very end. I'll be sure to keep you all posted as things unfold. Your messages, support, and encouragement have meant more than I can express, especially in the midst of so much chaos. Since my last post, the drama has only escalated, but thankfully, the legal situation is now behind me. Before diving into those recent developments, I want to take a step back and share something I just found out. A business associate of mine, someone who had worked with the wedding planner Mark and Jenny hired, recently gave me some background on how things were shaping up before the wedding. Apparently, the disaster didn't begin when I arrived. The cracks were already showing weeks before. According to my associate, Jenny had been a nightmare from the start. She was constantly demanding last-minute changes to everything, including the flower arrangements, even though she had already approved them. It didn't stop there. She went back and forth with the event planner over almost every detail. The wedding cake design had to be altered 3 times because Jenny couldn't make up her mind. She also insisted on a complete overhaul of the seating arrangement just days before the wedding, forcing the event planner to rearrange seating for over 300 guests multiple times. Not only was this inconvenient, but it was also expensive. The issues didn't end with the planning. Jenny clashed with the venue staff as well, making several condescending remarks about their professionalism. She complained that they weren't up to par for such an upscale wedding, which was laughable since the staff were among the best in the business, and the venue was renowned for its top-tier service. Jenny even tried to get the band to change their set list at the last minute, despite Mark and his fiancée having already chosen the songs months in advance. It was one of those classic scenarios where Jenny felt the need to control every aspect of the event, making the planning process a nightmare for everyone involved. My associate informed me that, in the weeks leading up to the wedding, the event planner was almost ready to quit because of Jenny's constant meddling and impossible demands. Yet, the planner stuck it out because of her professionalism, despite the emotional toll Jenny's behavior was taking on the team. Hearing this made me feel a little vindicated. The chaos I experienced at the wedding was clearly just a glimpse of the larger problems the vendors had been dealing with for weeks. As for the legal side of things, I got some positive news yesterday. My father's lawyer finally reached out, and they've agreed to accept our settlement offer. After what I can only assume was a lengthy discussion between my father, Jenny, and their legal team, they decided to take the partial refund and sign the non-disclosure agreement, NDA. This morning, the necessary documents were signed, and we processed the refund, 50% of their deposit, minus the costs already incurred for the food, staff, and travel. So, the legal dispute is now resolved. While the lawyer's letter was formal and didn't include any apology or acknowledgement of what really transpired, I wasn't expecting one. The key point is that they agreed to the settlement, and I won't have to worry about any further legal consequences. However, while the legal matter has been wrapped up, the personal fallout continues, and it seems to be getting worse. Jenny's attempts to sabotage my business have become increasingly unhinged. In the weeks following the wedding, she began reaching out to my employees directly, calling them at work and fishing for operational details, clearly hoping to dig up something she could use against me. Fortunately, my team is rock solid. They immediately alerted management and didn't engage. We've since reinforced our internal policy. Any contact from Jenny or anyone in my family is to be forwarded straight to our legal team. No exceptions. But Jenny didn't stop there. She's also been messaging some of my business partners and professional contacts on LinkedIn, spreading malicious lies about me, claiming I orchestrated the entire catering walkout to ruin her son's wedding out of spite. It's one thing to be upset over a ruined evening, but it's another to go on a targeted campaign to destroy someone's reputation. Jenny crossed a line, and we weren't going to let that slide. As soon as we confirmed what she was doing, our attorney sent her a cease and desist letter. The message was clear: back off or face legal consequences. While I hope the letter is enough to make her stop, I'm fully prepared to escalate things if she continues. Her behavior is teetering on the edge of defamation, and we're not taking any chances. Surprisingly, all of this seems to have caused serious tension in Mark's new marriage. I hadn't expected much from him after the disaster of the wedding, but word got back to me through mutual friends and a couple of cousins that his wife was deeply disturbed by how I was treated. Apparently, shortly after the wedding, she confronted him and demanded answers. She couldn't believe he stood by while his father and Jenny publicly humiliated me and did nothing. She told Mark that his silence was cowardly and that if he wanted a healthy marriage, he'd have to stop letting his family bulldoze over people, especially his own brother. From what I've heard, that conversation didn't go well. It escalated into their first major fight and ended with them postponing their honeymoon to work through the fallout. I don't know all the details, but it sounds like Mark is finally being forced to confront the toxic dynamics he's enabled for years. Whether he does anything with that realization remains to be seen, but it's clear that the ripple effects from this wedding disaster are far from over. I find myself caught in a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. On one hand, there's a strange sense of validation knowing that someone else, particularly Mark's wife, saw the situation for what it truly was. To hear that she was just as disturbed by our father's and Jenny's behavior made me feel a little less alone in all of this. But on the other hand, I genuinely feel for Mark. Despite my frustration and disappointment in him for not standing up for me, I know he's been under a lot of pressure from our family for years. That doesn't excuse his silence, but it adds complexity to a situation that was already emotionally exhausting. He's newly married and caught in a storm that he's only just beginning to understand. As for me, I'm working on turning the page. The legal mess is finally behind me, and my legal team is now dealing with the fallout from Jenny's attempts to sabotage my business. There's a small but growing sense of peace beginning to settle in. I'm not sure what the future holds when it comes to Mark or the rest of my family, but I've made peace with the fact that not all wounds heal overnight. Right now, I'm simply taking each day as it comes, leaning into the support from my staff, my business network, and the few family members who've quietly reached out to show their support. That encouragement has meant more than I can put into words. I'll be sure to update again if anything significant unfolds, but at the moment, I feel like this chapter is finally starting to close. Thank you, truly, for standing by me through this. Now, on to the latest development. Yesterday, I met up with Mark for coffee. I wasn't sure I was ready for it emotionally, but deep down, I knew the conversation needed to happen. From the moment we sat down, I could tell this wasn't going to be easy for either of us. Mark looked worn down, emotionally fragile in a way I hadn't seen before. When he started to speak, the dam broke. He apologized, genuinely, for all the years he enabled Jenny and let our father's favoritism run unchecked. He admitted he knew what was happening wasn't right, but he'd felt powerless to stop it. Finally hearing that from him face to face was a turning point. But what shocked me most was what he revealed next. Jenny had been manipulating our father for years through financial control. She had convinced him to put most of their assets in her name, including part ownership of Mark's condo. Mark had been completely unaware of this and felt utterly betrayed. It explained a lot: his constant anxiety, his strained relationship with Jenny, and even the way he had been hesitant to challenge our father's authority. Realizing that his autonomy had been a lie shook him. He told me he's now working with a financial advisor to separate himself from Jenny's influence and reclaim control over his life. It was one of the first real steps I've seen him take toward independence, and I felt genuinely proud of him for it. For the first time in a long while, I saw my brother trying to break free, and that gave me hope. During our coffee meeting, Mark shared some hopeful news about his relationship with his wife. He told me that they had made progress and were now going to couples counseling. Later that day, his wife reached out to me privately to share even better news. They are looking for a new condo, one that will be entirely in their names, without any involvement from Jenny. This was such a relief to hear. It seems Mark is finally finding his voice and standing up to Jenny in ways he never did before. They are setting important boundaries, reclaiming control over their lives, and it's heartening to see this positive change. Mark's wife also mentioned that they are planning a small vow renewal ceremony in a few months. This will be a special event with a different set of in-laws at the family table, marking a conscious effort to redefine what family means to them. Felt wonderful to hear this. They are actively taking steps to create a healthier family dynamic, one that doesn't involve the toxicity brought on by Jenny and my father. On the other hand, Jenny and my father have surprisingly remained silent since signing the NDA. Through mutual acquaintances, I've learned that they are facing social consequences within their country club community. Apparently, they had been telling a very different version of our family's story, casting me as the villain. Now, people are starting to question their narrative, and it seems that the social standing they once valued so much is now in jeopardy because of their own actions. It's strange to see how the tables have turned, but it's also satisfying to know that their behavior is catching up with them. This entire experience has taught me the importance of setting boundaries with toxic family members. Sometimes the hardest decisions, like maintaining those boundaries or standing firm in your beliefs, are the right ones, even if they lead to short-term chaos. I've come to realize that standing my ground, despite the backlash, has resulted in unexpected growth and healing in other relationships. I'm incredibly grateful for the outpouring of support from the community. Many of you have reached out to share your own experiences with toxic family dynamics, and it's comforting to know I'm not alone in this journey. I hope my story can help others in similar situations find the strength to take action. I've learned that life is too short for toxic relationships, but it's never too late for genuine reconciliation with those who are truly remorseful. Looking forward, I've decided to keep firm boundaries in place when it comes to Jenny and my father. Their actions have made it abundantly clear who they are, and I have no interest in reopening the door to that toxicity. That said, I'm open to the possibility of reconnecting with Mark and other family members who are willing to approach our relationship with respect and sincerity. Mark seems to be realizing the importance of setting healthier boundaries himself, and while I'm approaching it cautiously, I believe there's potential for us to rebuild something meaningful. On the business front, things have taken a surprisingly positive turn. In the aftermath of the wedding debacle, I received a flood of inquiries from guests and local clients who were impressed with how professionally my team handled the chaos. Word of mouth has worked in our favor, and we're seeing a sharp uptick in bookings. It feels good to know that all the long hours, tough calls, and leadership I've poured into the company are being recognized and appreciated. I also made a point to gather my team for a meeting, just to acknowledge everything they did during that high-pressure moment. I wanted them to know how proud I was of them, and they expressed the same back to me. Hearing them talk about how much they value the supportive culture we've built together was one of the most fulfilling moments I've had as a business owner. It reminded me that treating people with respect and trust goes a long way in creating something truly lasting. For those asking whether I'll be attending any more family functions, if Jenny or my father are involved, I won't be. I'm done putting myself in situations where I'm disrespected or devalued. But when it comes to people like Mark, who are making efforts to reflect and grow, I'm open to future conversations. It's a delicate balance, but one worth exploring. Life's too short to keep pouring energy into broken connections when there are so many genuine, supportive ones out there waiting to thrive. Thank you to everyone who reached out, left comments, or simply read along during this wild ride. Your encouragement and validation meant more to me than I can put into words. This will probably be my final update, but if you take anything away from this story, let it be this. It's okay to walk away from toxic people, even if they're family. You deserve peace, and standing up for yourself might just be the first step in finding it.